Okay, shalom to everyone. And again, I have to always say thank you to Lori for being such a gracious hostess, and to Aaron for posting on YouTube's. And I'm getting some very interesting feedback in the YouTube. So I'm very glad that people are watching from all over the world and making comments. And actually, I saw a comment from Malaysia. Malaysia is a Muslim country, but it has some Christians, and it has some Hindus, and it has some Buddhists. And it was a very positive, very, very nice message after they saw my YouTube, or after he or she saw my YouTube. And I don't know if you remember, but I was saying that I think that Indonesia and Malaysia are probably the two countries that can most easily absorb a million, million and a half Gazans. And actually, I received also an email from some Christian source that Malaysia is now has received a whole bunch of Palestinian terrorists with a lot of money. So I wouldn't be surprised if many of the Gaza Arabs will go to Malaysia. And very much like Indonesia, Malaysia has many islands, has it's on the equator, and has a lot of water. Has jungles. It has fertile land. And as long as they put the Gaza Arabs far away from everyone else so that they won't go around killing everybody, um, Malaysia could be a good place to put the Gaza Arabs. Same with Indonesia. I see those two countries as the greatest possibilities. Though there is talk of Sudan, and there is talk of Somalia and Somaliland. Um, but those are desert countries. I don't know if they would, be good for the Palestinians. I mean, it's not our problem, but for some reason, I have my eye on Malaysia and Indonesia, even though no one has admitted or mentioned the names that the Palestinians could be sent there. So we'll see what happens. Um, Something I said just before we started taping, and I'll repeat it now. For those of us who believe in God, I mean Jews and Christians, we see what seemed to have been a horrible defeat for us on October the 7th. And for many, many reasons, Israel was able, in pretty much grinding down the military capabilities of Gaza and the Hamas. We were then bombed on a daily basis by Hezbollah in Lebanon. We were forced to go in there too, and we ground them down too. And actually, because we ground them down, Erdogan of Turkey sent his army in with ISIS, Sunni terrorists, to take over Syria. And of course, the Shiites, Alawites, are being slaughtered by them. I received a message that the Christians in Syria are being starved to death. They are being denied food by the ISIS group of Erdogan. Israel has made overtures which have been accepted by the Druze. And some of the Muslims in the south area of Daraa, we have good relations with them ever since we had the field hospital on the border between the Golan Heights and South Syria. And of course, Megan, who is one of our participants here in the Zoom, knows very well everything that took place there. And if anybody has any questions about this field hospital set up by the Israelis, to help the Sunnis who were being slaughtered at that time by the Shiites. So if anyone has any questions, you can ask Megan. I just had a brief encounter with Jody Anderson's group and with Megan. And so now the tables have changed. Now the Sunnis are taking out their revenge on the Shiites and taking out their revenge on the Christians, and not the Jews, because Israel is very close to the Jews. I think I mentioned it in the last visit we had, that the churches in Damascus, the Greek Orthodox and Catholic churches, are virulently anti-Semitic. and they refuse to get close to Israel. So Israel is defending those who love us, and that's the Druze. At the same time, we're facing nightly missile barrages from Yemen, and President Trump has said to Israel, "Don't worry about it. We'll take care of them." So it's very interesting to see the daily bombardments by the American-led coalition, Americans and British, I think French also, over Yemen. So I think it's fair to say, concluding my opening remarks, is that things are looking very good now for Israel. Gaza is getting ground down again. Today they announced that they are willing to release, through Egyptian mediation, 5 living hostages. I think Israel is saying it's not enough, so there's some bargaining going on there. I hate to use the word bargaining. These people are being killed slowly by the Hamas. But Gaza is getting wiped out. The Gaza terrorists are getting wiped out. So it's interesting to see where this is all leading to. We did have 5 missiles fired at us from Lebanon a few days ago, and Israel intercepted them as well. I think Israel has warned Lebanon that this cannot go on. And there is indeed talk in Israel of Israel re-entering places south of the Litani River and annexing them and making sure to it that these crazy Hezbollah people do not start fighting with us again, because we've told our citizens to go back to their homes and there's nothing will bother them. Well, they're sending missiles. That's a bother. With Syria, today there was a battle in the south of Syria, near Daraa, in the province of Daraa. And 6 ISIS terrorists were killed by Israeli ground troops and the tank that was there. A very interesting point, I don't know if you're following it in America or in Europe, but the Turkish dictator Erdogan is now confronting millions of protesters every day in the streets, millions of protesters. Netanyahu also has a problem with protesters. I think it was down to about 1,000. And these are the ones who are paid to show up every night by the one world, the one deep state, one world government fund people. But I think the people in Israel really, really are tired of these demonstrations. And there's no reason for them, really, except to overthrow Netanyahu, which is not going to happen. But Erdogan, we don't know what's going to happen with Erdogan. Is it possible for him to douse the flames of these protesters in Turkish cities and towns? But it is interesting to see how God works, because Erdogan is crazy, megalomaniac. And the Turkish people, who are good people, by the way, even if they're Muslim, they're good people. And they're very, very offended by much of what Erdogan is saying and doing. So I think it's interesting that Israel is the apple of God's eye, and Israel is doing things that only God could support. And together with President Trump, who's God's man here, to this day, I'm still on the high that Trump won the elections. I'm on a high that the Democrats, led by Kamala Harris, are out. And I actually think that the Republicans will stay in power for another 24 years in the United States. So it'll be interesting to see how that all goes. Anti-Semitism throughout the world is a problem. I don't have any statistics really yet at this time, but Israel's Independence Day is on, I think it's like a week after the end of Passover, so it'll be like the end of, I think it's 1st of May. always on Israel Independence Day, they announce the population numbers, the immigration numbers. So I hope to get back to you guys with the information. But in my opinion, Israel is one of the few countries in the world where the population is just growing and growing in spite of all the difficult situations. And there was a poll taken out worldwide that the Israeli population is the happiest population in the world in spite of all the trouble. So it's good to see. Good to see. I see Claire sent me half a message. What did you want to say, Claire?
I put a smiley face because I think it's true that they are the happiest, and I'm thinking about babies everywhere and
Yeah.
just the face of everything that God just is amazing.
Amen. Amen. Anyway, maybe Israel should annex Malta. That would be nice.
Yeah, Malta's crazy. Oh dear
But
me.
no, everything is good. And
Good.
for those of you, I not know that I didn't see Claire the last few weeks, but we're having my pacemaker battery replaced on the 9th of April. And so probably around the 9th of May, 30 days later, I'm able to get a letter from the doctor so that I can travel. And then I've got to get to Florida, get my car resurrected, and see if I can drive with it all the way to California and do my lectures. I haven't done any real lectures in 2 years. So the time has come for all good men to come to the aid of their country.
That's really good. God bless you.
God bless you. And God is blessing me, but God bless you and everyone on the Zoom. Anyway, I don't know if you want me to give more information, frontal information. I will say Argentina, which is a country close to my heart. Javier Milei, who is the president, is standing very firmly with the United States. It's not MAGA, Make America Great Again. It's Make Argentina Great Again. That's also MAGA. And President Milei is a steadfast ally of America and Israel. And I think it's fair to say, with all due respect to the Brits here, Argentina, United States, and Israel are my three favorite countries. So I think I have there again another reason to be happy. I think things are good. The Argentine stock market is up by 3% as of this morning. I think America, United States, is pulling out of the temporary down that took place in the stock market because of all these tariffs. I don't know. I'm generally just a very optimistic person. I think things are going to be okay. The Israeli economy is doing very well in spite of the war and in spite of all the protesters. The protesters are protesting, but they're making a lot of money. So that's a pretty good sign. And we're just here, waiting to see what happens. Will we attack Iran, or will President Trump have a peaceful outcome to the negotiations with Iran? What's going to happen with the Houthis? Are they going to stop firing missiles, or will they be stopped? Will Gaza return hostages to Israel? I think we will probably accept the 5 who are now being negotiated for. Egypt has put together a hostage exchange, rather a hostage for terrorist exchange. So we'll have to see where that all goes. And but until then, things are pretty much normal. I'll be happy to take any questions if you have.
Avi, I saw a report that the leadership from UAE went to Egypt to give a message from America to the Egyptian leadership that this was their last chance to accept the deal of taking on about 500,000 Gazans. Can you talk about maybe what's going on there?
Well,
The UAE.
yes. The UAE is part of the Abraham Accords, recognizing Israel and being a good guy as far as Israel is concerned. The Egyptians have been provided with so much weaponry by the United States and other countries. And it seems like Egypt is behaving in a very menacing manner towards Israel. And we shouldn't forget, Egypt is not moving a finger regarding the Houthi missiles, which are being fired at Israel, but also at international maritime ships. So there's something very negative in the Egyptian behavior. And, I have to tell you, I think I'm speaking on behalf of Israel when I say that we Israelis, in general, we love Egypt. I love Egypt. My wife is Egyptian. And even though she has a very bad history with Egypt for what they did to her family, Egyptians in general are very much liked in Israel. There used to be a time that many Israelis would go on tourism to Egypt. That was pretty much stopped by the Egyptian government. The Egyptian government does not allow Egyptians to come to Israel. So it is a cold peace, which could turn into war. And I think that President Trump is nudging Egypt to knock it off and to be much more positive, much more cooperative with Israel and the United States. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I said this in a very menacing manner in the past. We were so happy when we made peace with Egypt in 1979, and we gave back Sinai a third time to the Egyptians. And I don't understand the Egyptians, because if they attack us again, which they're threatening to do, they're going to lose Sinai for a fourth and final time. I don't think Trump will turn his back on Israel. I think Trump will participate in whatever offensive action has to be taken against the Egyptians. I think that the Gaza Arabs, I've said this many times, I said this before I think you came on, I think there are two countries that I think would be perfect at taking the Gaza Arabs, and that would be Indonesia and Malaysia. And yesterday I got a very interesting email. The thousands of Gaza Arabs have moved to Malaysia with a lot of money. And they were welcomed by the Malaysians. And Malaysia does have a Christian population. It does have a Hindu population. It does have a Buddhist population. But I think it's very possible to settle the Gaza Arabs in areas that do not have those non-Muslim populations. They're all Sunnis. And so I haven't heard anything from Indonesia yet. But Indonesia also, very rich, very big country, the biggest Muslim country in the world. Christians, they have some, on the island of Bali, they have some Hindus and some Buddhists. But the rest of the country is solidly Muslim. And I think it could be a very good, prosperous decision by Indonesia to take in 1 million Gaza Arabs, because they're far away from everyone. They have all the water, all the land, fertile land there in Indonesia. And they can develop their lives as good Muslims together with the Indonesian Muslims, who are 200 million there. So I think Egypt is very, very afraid of starting off a civil war in Egypt between the Muslim Brotherhood, which is very much the ideology of the Gaza Hamas. So I think the Egyptians just they want these wasps with a small w out of the area so that they will not disrupt, destabilize Egypt. So it could be that President Trump is arm twisting and saying to the Egyptians, if you don't take in some Gaza Arabs, we're going to reconsider American foreign aid to Egypt. So it could be that was the message of the UAE.
Hi, Avi.
Yes.
Hello.
How are you,
I'm
Angela?
good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
By the way,
I'm just...
I can't complain. It wouldn't help if I did complain. And besides, my wife complains for both of us. Okay, go on.
Well, I think she might see it a bit differently, as wives do. Um,
Just remember,
Avi,
women are always right and the men are always wrong. And the moment the men recognize that, they will have a
yeah,
happy.
know your place exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I was just listening to what you were saying about Egypt. But I was thinking in the past, and I can't remember what year, what it was, but both Jordan and Egypt will have signed um, treaties with European a convention over what happens with refugees in that area. So to say that you know Israel is are in breach of doing what is right by refugees or whatever, it's actually Egypt and Jordan who are breaching the Geneva Convention on what happens with refugees because they're refusing to take them, even though they are, they are speaking the same language from the same culture from the same region, and they're refusing to take them in as neighboring countries.
It takes a thief to know a thief.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You know what? If I were Mubarak, I would take in Palestinian refugees with one caveat, and that would be it would be a 6-month laissez-passer to some other Muslim country,
Mm,
and that the Egyptians would send them to Indonesia or but take the money from the Americans and then encourage these Gaza Arabs to go on to the next and final stage.
yeah.
But meanwhile, get them out of Gaza.
I mean, they are originating from Egypt and Transjordan anyway.
Yeah, a
Their
lot of
own,
them.
yeah, a lot of them, yeah. I just don't understand why the journalism doesn't pick that up, why no one is stating the obvious.
Well, regarding journalism, whenever I speak in churches in America or Europe or anywhere, I always take my hat off to the journalists and I thank them very much. And I say, because of their ignorance, they cannot teach about the Middle East because they are ignorant and they were badly trained by their mentors. So that even the mentors didn't really understand what was going on. And so Avi Lipkin has to come into the churches and teach what's going on. So I'm very happy when churches are not afraid and they invite me. Some churches, they're so afraid of their own shadows that they don't invite me. And of course, 99% of the synagogues don't want to invite me because they're afraid of anything. And pro-Muslim, and they're still living in 1492 in Islamic Granada. So there's a lot of historic ignorance that has to be overcome, and it's only a few courageous pastors and maybe some individual rabbis who would say, "Yeah, I'll come and share with us. Just moderate your tone a little bit."
Yeah. Yeah, well, we certainly have learned so much from you, Avi, over the years. So we thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I want you to know I enjoyed coming to Jersey very much.
We enjoyed having you too.
Yeah, and also I enjoyed being in the UK. The problem, because I had to take taxis everywhere, and drivers were all Pakistanis. So truthfully, I was very scared.
Oh dear.
Yeah. But no, I got home safe and sound and paid the groceries, so I'm okay.
Praise the Lord. It's good to see you. And
Good to
well,
see you
obviously,
too.
you're in our prayers for your
I can
postman.
feel it. I can feel the prayers. I can feel like every morning I open my eyes and I put God's armor on first thing in the morning.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Avi.
You're welcome. Any other questions? I don't know. Maybe we have to wait for some big war to break out or something so that I can give you live coverage. But as it is, yes.
Are the people in the north for the most part back home?
No. About 10% of the northern Israelis are back in their homes. The 5 rockets that were fired at them this week caused some of them to go back to places where they had been, because there was always this fear that there would be rockets still raining down on Metula and Kiryat Shmone. And I think immediately the Israeli government spoke to the American government, because the American government are guarantors for peace in Lebanon. That's the only reason we pulled out. We may have to go back into Lebanon again. One of the interesting things is that the Sunnis, backed by Turkey, have actually crossed the border from Syria into Lebanon, and they're killing the Shiites. So I don't know, will there be a war between the Sunnis and the Shiites in Lebanon? That could be. So we're watching the developments there. The problem with the Sunnis coming down from Turkey and from Idlib is that they could come, and they're already coming down to the south border to Israel to fight us, and our army is taking them out. We're intercepting these Sunni terrorists. But don't forget, Lebanon was always part of Syria. So it could be that the Turks, who claim Syria as part of their caliphate, would then enter into Lebanon in order to take Lebanon over for Turkey. We're watching all of this very carefully. We know the history. So we shall see where this all goes. Don't forget also that the Christians in Lebanon, some of them are allies of the Israelis, but the majority of the Christians are allies of the Shiites. Because the Shiites and the Christians and the Druze were traditionally allies against the Syrian Sunnis. And so there's a lot of instability now ideologically. Like, who are we talking to? Are we talking to the Sunnis backed by Syria, or are we talking to the Shiites backed by Iran? And I think a lot of this will only be straightened out when Iran is taken out by the U.S., or there's some kind of agreement between Iran and the United States, which I don't think is going to happen. Have I confused everybody? I'm confused.
Can I ask about what you think about Trump with King Charles, about this Commonwealth thing, and he said he's going to join, or he might join. Have you seen that?
Which king?
Charles, England.
King Charles. You're talking English. I only understand American English.
I've got a cold as well, so I'm all bunged up. So I sound
what?
amazing.
I'll never forget. Did you see the movie Patton?
No.
General Patton was once in the UK during the war, and he was giving a lecture to British people, and he said, you know, the Brits and the Americans are a nation divided by a common language. He had a sense of humor. He got into trouble with his sense of humor.
You got to have a sense of humor nowadays. Full stop. But apparently it's going to be the 57th country. And I just wondered if you had a comment about it.
Repeat a comment about what?
About this Commonwealth thing and joining that King Charles. Have you not seen it?
I haven't seen it, no. Tell me what he's saying.
Well, I just saw it quickly this morning. I haven't read it, but I just saw a picture, a photo, and they were together, and he was saying that he was contemplating or has joined the Commonwealth as the 57th country to join, and talking about his about his Scottish background. So I just wondered if you knew anything about it.
No. The only thing I know is I like Scotch.
And there's one more thing. Have you seen that one where Japan has invited or said that they're going to look after all the Gazans who have been injured, and they can all go to Japan? I saw that this morning as well.
Well, all I can say is Japan is not very friendly to Islam. But it could be that Japan is open to humanitarian care for the Gaza wounded. Could be. In other words, they go to the hospitals, they get taken care of, and then they get sent back to Gaza or some other place.
I don't know if it's a new prime minister, but it didn't sound so positive for Japan, what I heard.
I can just tell you the Japanese do not like Islam. They haven't been, but they don't like it.
Okay, and Angela's put in the comments that King Charles is inviting the USA to join the British Commonwealth countries. Yeah. Anyway, something to look into.
Well, that's interesting. You know, I have to tell you, when I went to England a few times to speak to churches there, England is for somebody like me, England is a very, very small country. But I've been in Canada many, many times. So if you have Canada, the US, and other Commonwealth countries, the Anglo world is a very big world. Mm-hmm. So, though I really cannot go to any of these countries anymore because they all have hate speech laws. And if you talk about Islam, you go to jail. So, you know, like, I'm not really interested in going to jail.
Yeah.
When I said to my wife, Megan, before I continue, you can share, you definitely can share my videos on X if you want. Yes, please.
Thank you.
God created me to get a certain message out, and people can agree or disagree, but my job is to get the message out. So if you can help me with that, that's good. And, you know, my message is free. I don't ask people for money. The only one who asks for money is Rachel. She's always asking me for money. No, but
what's your YouTube channel called, Avi?
Avi Lipkin, YouTube's.
Okay, simple. Thank you.
I'll put it in the chat for you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I imagine as the situation develops here, we will have more news to talk about, especially regarding the Houthis and Iran and Lebanon, all these countries that are attacking us now. I believe they will be subdued by a commonwealth of nations, which would include England and the US and France. So we'll have to see where this all goes. Meanwhile, we're hunkering down here in Israel. Yes, I see, Megan. You posted it. It's good. Also, I have to say something. I never talk about it, but even though there are protesters in the streets in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, I think Israel will not have elections until the official date in October 2026, which is only a year and a half away. And usually a half a year before the elections, they announce the date. So we're basically a year away from our next elections. And then Avi Lipkin and the Bible Block Party are in the running again. So we'll see this time if we get more than 500 votes.
I just saw where she said that the U.S. is a commonwealth. Now, I didn't feel that USA was the Commonwealth of England. I thought it was independent.
No, the United States was never part of the Commonwealth because the Commonwealth literally meant colonies who see the Queen of England as their leader. And now with King Charles, King Charles, who knows? Maybe Trump has a deal. If Trump has a deal with King Charles, don't forget that there's a rival organization called BRICS. I don't know if you heard about BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and Australia. Countries which seek the demise of the US dollar. So it might be that if President Trump signs up an agreement with the Commonwealth, nations, 57 nations, that will be good for the dollar and for the American economy and the British economy. So I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see. I haven't read it yet, so I don't know what the commentaries are saying. But you did see that gold went up to $3,000 an ounce, and then it came a little bit down to 2,920. So it'll be interesting to see if gold shoots back up over 3,000. I think it will. Fortunately or unfortunately for me, I'm poor. I have no money, so I have no gold.
We don't have any.
Huh?
I said I don't have any either, so I didn't know about this.
Yeah, so I don't have the gold either, but you know, there's some people that make a big deal about it. I say, as long as I have enough to go to the supermarket, I'm happy-go-lucky.
Avi, could you talk a little bit about the relationship of Russia and Turkey?
Oh, that's an interesting subject. Don't forget, I'm a Sovietologist. So I could give you a very, very long history. That would take a few hours. Let's see what time it is. It's 7 minutes after the top of the hour. I can give this 10, 15, 20 minutes if you want. And by the way, if anyone has any questions, you can just, break in and ask the question. You have to remember that the Roman Empire lasted almost 1,000 years until 453 AD. And then it was replaced by the Eastern Roman Empire, which was based in Constantinople. And that lasted 1,000 years. And then the Turks took over. The Muslims took over in 1453. The Russians considered themselves the greatest country in Eastern Orthodox Christianity, which was the religion of the Byzantine Empire. And therefore, that made Russia the successor to Rome, to Eastern Roman Empire, and Constantinople. And one of the reasons Constantinople fell in 1453 was that the Catholics, who were the Western Christians, would not come and back the Eastern Christians. And so the Russians, always in the back of their minds, see Constantinople as being the Rome of the Orthodox Church, and that they must inevitably come back to Constantinople. The Turks, on the other hand, appeared on the scene in the year 1002 with the invasion of Anatolia by Alp Arslan. They, in 450 years, basically defeated the Turks. It defeated the Christians. And so today you look at Turkey, the country Turkey, and it is the rump of Anatolia, the peninsula jutting into the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. And the Turkish Empire, at its height in 1471, reached from Morocco and the Atlantic Ocean all the way to China, to Xinjiang province. The Turks want to go back to those borders. That means that the 6 republics that broke away from the former Soviet Union will join Turkey. Anyone from the 6 republics can go to Turkey and get a Turkish passport. It's also one of the reasons why the European Union does not want Turkey as a member of the European Union, because then they will be outnumbered 320 million Muslims versus 300 million non-Muslims. And we can do the math if you want, but all the Turkic peoples getting Turkish passports would immediately overnight become European citizens. And that would mean the end of Christian Europe. So the Turks are, I think, the greatest mistake that Erdogan made was this week when he arrested everybody. And You have millions of people in the streets in Istanbul and the other cities protesting this dictatorial maniac doing what he's doing to anyone who opposes him in Turkey. And he did this a few times. He did this a few years ago. He did this a few years before when he took all the judges who were followers of Kemal Ataturk and secular Turkey, threw them all in jail. And the generals, all the generals who were nationalists, but they were not fanatic Muslim. And I think I mentioned, Lori, I was in Russia in 1994, and through a very strange series of coincidences, I was on Radio Moscow, and I was interviewed in Russian. And my Russian is horrible, but the interview was at 12 noon, and I got there at 8 in the morning, and for 4 hours I worked translating together with my Russian hosts all the questions and answers. And so they would ask the questions, I would answer them with my own handwriting, but I understood what I was writing. It was I wasn't being fooled by anyone. And I got up and they said that Russia, now that communism has fallen in 1994, Russia is a Western country, and Russia should be allied with the United States. By the way, maybe that's part of Trump's plan. That's one of the reasons why he's talking to Putin, he's talking to the Ukrainians to try to arrange a ceasefire. The Western countries should all be allied against the Muslims. And Europe should be united against the Muslims. And Israel should be united against the Muslims. And my interviewer said, listen, he says, I'm a communist. I still believe in the solidarity of all the nations. And we should be friendly with the Turks. And I looked at him, I said, you're talking nonsense. He jumped in his chair. He's a communist. And I said, you've been fighting the Turks for 1,000 years, from Alp Arslan in 1002 until today, 1994 it was. And your enemy was the Turks, was the Muslims, and still is today. And he said, well, we still believe in solidarity of all the nations. I said, that's nonsense. If you know Russian history, the Holy Russian Church Mother Russia has been fighting the Turks. And then finally he looked at me and says, he said, you're right. We'll never forget in the Battle of Stalingrad, when all the Nazi armies surrendered, because don't forget, you had German armies, Italian, Hungarian, Spanish, and you had SS. You had Muslim SS soldiers, Gestapo. And when the orders were given to surrender to the Red Army, the only ones who would not surrender were the Muslims. And they had a last death charge against the Red Army. And the Red Army machine gunners mowed them all down. And so Oleg Gritkov, who was my interviewer, he said to me, every Russian school child goes to school and learns about the Battle of Stalingrad and how the Muslims are the enemy, and still are. So I don't know. I don't have any hatred for anyone, even the Muslims. But the Russians are Christian. They're European. And by the way, Putin loves the Jewish people. He pays the salaries of the Jewish community rabbis. Situation for the Jews in Russia is not really so bad, at least under Putin. I don't know what will happen when Putin dies. Don't forget, the Ukrainians don't pay salaries to the rabbis. The Russians do. The Russians take care of the Jewish people. But again, getting back to the Turks, Russia is trying to do what America does, which is to do business with the Muslims. And I don't know if you know this or not, but 90% of the weapons which are sent to the Islamic countries are sent by the United States. Only 10% of the weapons come from Russia. Putin has given the Muslims the right to build the biggest mosque in Russia. There's room for 2 million people there in that mosque. It's a very big mosque. So Putin is trying to do business and get support from the Muslims as well. It's not so easy. You've got the Chechens. Some of the Chechens are the worst enemies of the Russian Christians. And then there are some Chechens who are allies for their own personal reasons. So all of this is very interesting. But the Russians made a very clear strategic decision in 1990 to disassociate themselves from 200 million Muslims in the 6 republics that broke away. The population was 350 million in the Soviet Union. It came down to 150 million, and it made Russia a Christian nation. Today, Russia is a Christian nation. It has Muslim minority, but it got rid of, excuse the expression, got rid of 200 million Muslims, which actually during the Cold War, Russia was a Muslim nation without religion, but the people were Muslim, especially in the 6 republics. So, you know, when you study Russian history, I think it's easy to see that Russia went through a number of stages, and Russia is going back to being Christian and European again. The problem is, okay, now I'm going to flip the switch. The difference between Russia and the other Slavic nations is that Russia was conquered by the Mongols. And the Mongols, they're not Muslim, but they're ferocious. And that's one of the reasons why you never had a Magna Carta in Russian history. There's no democracy. It's something that cannot be in Russia unless there's some kind of Magna Carta drawn up in Russia today by the oligarchs in Russia who want to get rid of Putin. But until then, what I see is Russia is a Christian nation in the old-fashioned way of thinking, with the Russian Orthodox Church being the one and only church. So we shall see. I don't know where this is all going. I think that what Trump is trying to do is to get closer to Putin, because both of them are anti-deep state. They're anti-one world government. And so is Netanyahu. I did a DVD teaching called The Trump Revolution in 2016 when Trump won his first time. And I'm not saying to get it, but if you get it, you're going to get a deep insight into things that happened when Trump became the prime minister, Trump became president. Don't forget, you had Putin, Trump, and Netanyahu in 2016. And the deep state throughout Europe and the United States hated them. It might be that King Charles in England, according to what Angela mentioned, expanding the sovereignty of the British Commonwealth by inviting the Americans, that could, I don't know, maybe it could be a counterweight against the deep state. You know, on the one hand, I think King Charles is one world government himself. But what kind of counterweight are we looking for? We're looking for someone who's going to oppose the Chinese, someone who's going to oppose anyone who threatens Judeo-Christian Western civilization and democracy. So what did I say in Radio Moscow? I said that Europe, America, and Israel have to work together with Russia to defeat the Turks. And the Turks want to go back to the borders of Morocco all the way to China. So there's a lot of history. Good question, Laurie. Good, thank you.
It is interesting history. It's so curious because, I mean, Russians vacation in Turkey all the time. Like today, they still just go. It seems like on the surface friendly relations, but I don't see how it can be friendly relations. Well,
you know what? That raises an interesting point. As you know, with my Judeo-Christian Bible Block Party, I'm trying to reach out to the Russians who live in Israel, the Russian speakers, and warn them of the threat of Islam, because I think, Laurie, you'll agree with me, Islam is a threat to Israel. Islam is a threat to America. Islam is a threat to England and to other European countries. And I met a Russian couple, and they wanted to be the number one candidates in my candidate list for the Knesset. And when they heard me talking about Islam being a threat, you know what they said to me? He said, that's old-fashioned thinking. In other words, they were communists. They were saying, we believe in the solidarity of all the nations. And I was saying, no. The old-fashioned thinking is the correct thinking. And I don't know, Lori, if you'll agree with me about this, but there are many churches that in America or worldwide that the old-fashioned thinking is the right thinking. And those churches which go off in strange directions, that is not the right thinking. So I don't know if I said something that might offend someone, but there are churches that they're against Israel. There are churches which are LGBT. There are churches which are CRT, you know, all these different woke and other things. And usually these churches disband after a certain time because they're not the right Christian thinking. So, did I offend anyone?
Not at all. I
Yeah.
completely agree.
And, you know, I'll tell you, I really never had much of a chance to go to the old-fashioned churches, but I love the hymns and I love the sincerity and the beauty of the classical English, because English is my language also. But I hear Russian church music. I hear Johann Sebastian Bach. All these musics, you know, really touch my heart. But on the other hand, you have these rock concert bands, which are, I don't know what kind of noise they make. They call it music, but it's not, in my opinion, not really Christian music. I'm going into things now which many people might disagree with, because some of the churches that support me the most are the ones with the rock bands. And the ones who support me the least are the classical churches, which have the classical hymns and music, which I love so much. And I wish they would invite me. Tell me, Angela, do you go to the rock music churches or you go to the classic churches?
No, we have a mixture of both.
Oh, okay.
We have a worship team, and there's a mixture because our congregation is very mixed.
Right. You know, there's, yeah.
Yeah. I agree with what you're saying. It has to be worship, not entertainment.
You know, I'll tell you, I grew up in America, a young boy. There was a war documentary every week called Navy Log. And it was about the U.S. Navy in World War II. And don't forget, I was 10 years old in 1959. I was 10 years old. Very influenced by Navy Log and all these other Army, Navy movies. And there was every time a ship sunk or there was something very sad, sailors were dying, and they would play a certain tune, which made me cry. It was so emotional. I never knew what the tune was till I went to some churches in Texas, and I started singing it, and they said, "Oh, that's Eternal Father, Strong to Save." I don't know if you know which one that is. It's called the Navy song of the British, Canadian, and American navies. Eternal Father, Strong to Save. I don't put it on anymore because every time I put it on, I start crying, and it's a Christian hymn.
Yes, some of the old Wesleyan hymns, especially, are very beautiful.
Yeah,
and the reverence for God is there, which is sometimes lacking.
You know, I have to tell you,
music.
My mom was raised in a convent in Argentina because my grandfather got a job as a traveling salesman, and they had to live out in the country. And the only school in that village where they were was a Catholic convent. And my mother is a Jewish girl. The nuns treated her very nicely. They didn't, teach her catechisms and all the other stuff Catholics do. They just, taught her the state syllabus. But the nuns were always on the organ playing Bach. And my mother
Mm.
always grew up loving Bach. And then when I was a young kid, my mother was playing records of Johann Sebastian Bach. And I could feel God's presence listening to that music. Bach touched me so much. And so I think that really nobody has a monopoly on God as far as music goes, or anything else for that matter.
Yeah,
I think,
it's beautiful. And
yeah,
I think the one you're referring to is For Those in Peril on the Sea. For those in peril on the
yes,
sea.
for those in peril on the sea,
On the
yes,
sea. So that's got it up here now. Traditionally associated with seafarers, it was written in 1860 by William Whiting,
right,
inspired by Psalm 107 and popularized by the Royal Navy and the United States Navy in the 19th century.
right. And
Very beautiful.
I think anybody who is open-minded should just look it up. Eternal Father, strong to save.
Mm.
And you tell me, I mean, anyone who's listening to us now, tell me if they don't get emotional hearing it. It's so touching.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Most Holy Spirit,
Yeah,
who does brood upon the chaos of the dark. Yeah, it's very meaningful words. And if you are in peril on the sea, that would really be meaningful to you. And it's for those who've lost,
I have
you
to tell
know,
you, my
loved
granddaughter,
ones.
my granddaughter is going steady with a submariner in the Israeli Navy, and he invited us. We went onto his submarine, small submarine, and I had all these flashbacks to the movies I used to see in the 1950s, black and white, newsreels. And I think to myself, what it must be like to be in the submarines during the wartime. And very emotional, very emotional. First time in my life to be on a submarine was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't think I would like that personally.
My wife, Rachel, tried to go down the stairs. They have a ladder, and she came out and said, "I can't go. I'm claustrophobic." So anyway, little
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, I had a chance to go into a submarine, but I didn't want to go. Everybody else went, but I didn't go. But my brother was in the submarines, stationed in the submarines.
So he was a hero.
No,
Anyone
but
who
he
goes,
said, but he said after he slept in a submarine, he could sleep anywhere.
yeah.
Mm.
Anyway, may God give us peace as much as possible and protect us from anyone who just wants to destroy us.
Amen. Amen.
Avi, thinking again about the people who are displaced from the north. What are the best ways you think that those of us in other countries can help the population of Israel who are impacted by the war currently, which is everybody?
Well, I'll tell you, when you flee or you're directed by the government, by the Israeli government to leave your homes and go to the center of the country or somewhere outside the range of the Hezbollah rockets, and you're there for 1 year, for 2 years, and you get your kids registered in local schools, wherever in Tel Aviv or Haifa or wherever, and then the government says, okay, everything is okay, go home. It's not easy to uproot the children, uproot the parents, uproot the teachers. The schools have to be fixed. Many of the schools were shelled. The houses were shelled. Everything has to be rebuilt. And this is not from today to tomorrow. This could take a year or 2 years till all these houses are fixed. So meanwhile, in the north, about 10% of the people have returned to their homes. I presume it's people whose homes were not too destroyed. But the moment 5 rockets came down from Lebanon, there were a lot of people who were saying it's not time to go home yet. So the schools have to be rebuilt. Everything has to be rebuilt. You have to remember people who had their grocery stores or pizza or falafel parlors. How can they reopen if people are not living there? So all of these things have to be orchestrated all at the same time. So we have to watch that. One of the reasons, Lori, I have to tell you, that the Israelis went into South Syria and along the Mount Hermon range and expanded the security belt was to make sure that rockets would not be falling in the Israeli settlements in the Golan Heights and north of Israel. Don't forget, Hezbollah fired a rocket which killed 12 Druze children playing soccer. So on the one hand, we've had miracles from God. These armies of terrorists, murderous people were defeated. And now we're looking forward, what can we expect? And so what we have to do is, what can we do? We have to rebuild the schools, rebuild the homes. We have to encourage people to go back to their shops, open up their shops, open up their restaurants. And it's not an easy thing when rockets might still fall at any time. By the way, I'm talking to you all now. I hear the military aircraft, the Israeli Air Force, right above my head here flying. Last night, 8 o'clock, the alarms went off, and the Houthis had sent a missile from Yemen. It's just here in Jerusalem, we have nowhere to flee to. But all these Houthi missiles were intercepted over the Red Sea, so it wasn't so much of a problem. But President Trump said to Israel, you leave the Yemenites to us, we'll take care of them.
Your lunch is there.
Well,
Did I answer your question, Lori?
Well, I'm trying to think of, what we can do to help those people.
Well, firstly, pray.
Mhm.
Firstly, pray. It's very hard for me to tell you because what I would have to say is you have to come to Israel, you have to take a tour of the north, and you have to meet the different people in different organizations, like the mayor of Kiryat Shmona or the mayor of Metula. You have to speak to the commanding officers and see what areas need the help, and reach out to the people to whom you can contribute. But there's so much need that it's very hard to say, well, give to this organization or give to that organization. There are many organizations you can give to, but you don't really know what percentage of the money actually reaches the people. You know that.
You think
Any other questions? Yes.
I was just about to say, you think that's a wrap for today?
Yeah, I think we're good. We've done over an hour. It's good.
And Europe and everybody but the United States goes on daylight saving time this weekend, right? So it'll be back to regular time.
Yeah.
Next week we'll be back at the regular time as far as Israel is concerned.
Yeah, as far as everyone but the United States is concerned, we're already on the regular time.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
Yeah.
So just to